Hello, Pong Stars, and welcome to the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zach Eichten. We have a great week of the Rathole, and I'm so excited to get into it. First off, let's get into the matchup recaps of Week 13. There were playoff implications all the way across the board, and seeding implications all the way across the board. And quite frankly, there were some pretty interesting numbers. So let's get into it right away. In our Pong Stars Game of the Week, match number 1, we had Randy's Donuts up against Pelicans on a bench. Again, that is Pelicans on a bench. Noel losing his 5th straight game in a row, dropping from 4-4 all the way to 4-9 by the end of the season, as well as Lucas getting his 3rd win on the season, moving to 3-10, and his second more than 100-point game on the season so far. Both of those 100 plus point games for Lucas, A, he won, and B, both of them were against Noel. So let's dive into how that happened. First and foremost, it just seems like, who would have thought that this would happen? Noel getting 99.96 points, Tannehill scoring very well, 27.5 points, Kamara doing fine. He's been kind of down since Drew Brees left with his rib injuries, but he's still the number one PPR running back on the year so far. But the problem really was James White. James White came into the game getting more than 10 points the previous 2, and then was only on the field for 28% of snaps and got 1.6 points. James White having to fill in, of course, for Joe Mixon and Christian McCaffrey. And then just it really was not a good score. It's not like there was much better on the waiver wire or on the bench, though, with Brian Hill getting only 1.8 on the bench. No, it really just comes down to a lot of just like missed opportunities, low performance from that Randy's Donuts squad. But it guaranteed that Noel was in the 2nd spot for the draft in next year's draft. Pelicans on a bench, though. Again, Pelicans on a bench. Played okay, enough to get a win. They actually got 5 more points than their projections coming into it. That's their 2nd week in a row where they outscored their projections. Matt Ryan, not great, but Darrell Henderson actually did fairly well. He had 49 yards on his 3 carries with a touchdown. Giovanni Bernard didn't do great, but Adam Thielen again came in with a fantastic game. He got 17.5 points against Jacksonville in their very close game, their overtime win there. Robert Tonyan had a touchdown, and then surprise, Jamison Crowder getting 19.2 points on 2 touchdowns. That's the first time that he has scored over 10 points since week 5. So Lucas definitely got lucky playing him in that flex spot. And then, of course, the story of this team is Younghoe Koo scoring 12 points. He's the number 1 kicker on the year, as well as the number 40 overall player on the year. Definitely a crazy stat to have a kicker ranked so highly this season. That brought Lucas, couldn't quite make it into a different spot, but he is the 10th seed, and Noel finishes his season in the 9th seed. All right, let's talk about Pong Stars Game of the Week number 2, the Gluten Freaks versus Not Trading Lamar. This was a must-win game for the Gluten Freaks to be able to make playoffs coming into this week at 5-7. They are able to get the win over Not Trading Lamar and move to 6-7 and snag a playoff spot with a 132.2 point win over Not Trading Lamar's 99.68 points. Josh Allen had the highest quarterback score in our fantasy format this week at 30.1, barely cracking 30, but it counts. And then really it was just a pretty okay score most of the way through these running backs and receivers, with Myles Gaskin getting 13, Austin Eckler having a down week, but it wasn't really his fault. The game script went so far away from the run for LA that they were down 0-45 at the end of the game. So it's understandable that he didn't have a fantastic production week. Cooper Kupp, he did fine. Julio, he did fine. But this was a crazy thing out of nowhere. It's just like because of some weird intuition or something. Austin Hooper was dropped from this gluten freak squad for Mike Gesicki. Hooper getting not that many points to Gesicki's 19.3, giving a clear edge over Kyle Rudolph for not trading Lamar, who scored 0 points, failing to haul in either of his 2 targets. Dean played well, and the Dolphins defense continues to be very good, number 3 defense on the year. Not trading Lamar Jackson, 25 points, which is really good for him. It's his, let's see, it is his first plus 20 point game since week 10. He was obviously sick with COVID, and he had a down week against Tennessee in week 11. Good to see him back. It definitely needed for the squad moving forward. Zeke didn't really have much success against Baltimore defense, though. He did fine, but he's been nowhere near where he needs to be this year. James Robinson continues to impress, though. But the real problem here was a combination of Terry McLaurin getting 2.4 points, and as mentioned earlier, Kyle Rudolph getting 0 points. Those between that wide receiver position and that tight end position, that's where those 30 points were made up for the gluten frauds. Let's head on over to our Pawn Stars game of the week, number 3, where it was the Google team names versus the dog sniffers. A must-win game for Thomas to make playoffs. He came up pretty short, getting 77.24 points to Sam's 92.92. That's a fun number. Due to this loss, the dog sniffers do not make playoffs, and they actually fall all the way down to the 8th spot in our final standings. Sam getting a win here moves him to 9-4, and he gets to take the number 2 seed and a bye in week 1, which means Sam will officially move to the furthest he has ever gone in the postseason into that second round of playoffs. But let's talk about this game here. Kyler Murray, not a great score from Kyler, getting 16 points. That's his second down week in a row. Hopefully he's able to have a bounce back week against the New York Giants, but the Giants are actually playing better than most people expect these days. Melvin Gordon and Nyheim Hines actually combined for a pretty okay score for what these two running backs really were. The problem is that pretty much any running back on the bench would have been better. Adrian Peterson scoring 17 points with 2 touchdowns, and Jonathan Taylor scoring a touchdown and having 44 yards receiving and 91 yards on the ground. Definitely not what you want if you're the Google team names there. Moving over to the wide receivers, DK and T. Higgins both did, and Juju Smith-Schuster, all 3 of them doing worse than Amari Cooper, who was on the bench. That's tough to see, not getting those extra points there. And then Evan Ingram getting 5.2 when Logan Thomas was on the bench for 20.3. Sam ultimately gets the win here, but he was way under expectations and was not able to capitalize on some needed points. Not really close enough to make a difference in the points for race that was happening. So overall, it's not going to really impact Sam, but in the future, definitely want to make sure that those lineups are adjusted accordingly. The dog sniffers had some troubles. Deshaun Watson getting under 20 points is never a good start. But Frank Gore leaving the game with a concussion after his single 2-yard carry, getting 0.2 points. That's really hard to recover from, even when Travis Kelce can get you 23.6. Jesus Christ. Even when Travis Kelce can get you 23.6 points. Really, it was just tough because, Tyler Boyd, he got ejected, but he was on the bench after getting 13.7 points, which would have been better than Sammy Watkins or Keenan Allen or Christian Kirk. It's tough to see when you get a 0.7 and a 0.2. Will Lutz misses his field goal, gets 3. The Ravens defense don't play well enough against Dallas. They only get 1 sack, 1 interception. It was just a tough week for the squad here, for the dog sniffers, and it moves them out of playoff contention and into the loser bracket, where they will face Noel and Randy's Donuts in matchup number 1. In our Pong Stars game of the week, match number 4, then we had the Spring Chickens versus the Gruesome Grinders. These two will be facing off against each other in the first round of playoffs as well, just like the Gluten Freaks and Not Trading Lamar will be doing as well. Quick rematches between those two. So let's talk about how we got here. Spring Chickens end up in the 6th seed after this loss, losing 116.12 to 111.3. Aaron Rodgers played fantastic. He had 3 touchdowns. Really a solid start for his quarterback. Dalvin Cook getting 20.9 points. Chris Carson getting 18.5. And that's kind of where things start to fall apart a little bit here. Chase Claypool getting 4.8. Raheem Mostert getting 4.8. For some reason, only getting 9 carries after starting extremely strong in their first drive for San Francisco. And Kansas City defense only getting 5 points. Definitely tough. Actually, number 1 receiver on the week, I believe, Corey Davis, sitting on the bench right there. That could have got Brennan the win, which would have moved him up into the up further in the standings. Still would have probably faced Drew, though, if that had happened. So ultimately did not impact much there, but he's able to make playoffs, and that is exactly what Brennan wants to do. Gruesome Grinders are able to just barely miss on getting the number 1 score on the season by about 2 something points. If he had not played Kendall Hinton, Drew Mahol would have been the points for winner of the regular season. But let's look at what he did wrong here to miss by just barely that much. First of all, Pat Mahomes' sub 20-point score. Definitely not what you ever want to see from one of the best fantasy players ever played the game, one of the best quarterbacks ever played the game. And it's only his second sub 20-point performance on the year for Pat Mahomes. Derrick Henry, inexplicably having only 5.4 points, getting a fumble in their game against Cleveland. David Montgomery played very well. Solid performance from him. No complaints, but just throughout the rest, just doing barely good enough on those margins to keep Brennan behind, but not quite enough to take that points for title. And then Drew will end in the 3rd spot in playoffs. So then let's talk about the last Pong Stars game of the week, a must-win game for Tony Townsend where he did get blown out. It was actually Tony's lowest score in the year so far, shockingly, at 86.26. So actually a pretty good season for Tony, pretty consistent if he's able to stay above that all season. But where did he go wrong? Justin Herbert. First of all, Justin Herbert. And 0 to 45 points against New England is never what you want, but especially not when you have the quarterback for that team with 0 points. 4.36 for Justin Herbert, doing his best, but they just had his number that week. As well as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was active. Everybody said he was active, and then he didn't play. He just sat on the sidelines, and he was there just in case something had went wrong, but he had an illness and did not play. He got 0 points. That's tough to see as a fantasy manager, but realistically, wouldn't have made a difference. Nobody on the bench was going to be able to overtake the 153.62 points that had to be overcome in order to win for Tony's team. TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson have been really impressive for this squad so far. TJ Hawkinson, the number 3 tight end for PPR formats, and Justin Jefferson, the number 7 wide receiver in PPR formats. He has been absolutely fantastic. He had that one big 35-point game. He had a big 27-point game, but he's been extremely consistent, getting over 16 points the last 4 weeks. And if he can continue that into the fantasy postseason here, Tony should be in pretty good shape to at least not go all the way down into that loser game, assuming he can win against Lucas in week number 14. John is the clear number 1 seed coming in. He has that points for title by about 2-point-something points over Drew. But looking at his team, he's got Russell Wilson, who had another down week, 15.02. Look for some analysis this offseason on after the trade occurred with Brennan, the difference in production from Russell Wilson, who was on track for an MVP season and no longer appears to be necessarily in the running for that, losing 12-17 to the New York Giants. Miles Sanders, 3.1 points. This is actually his third sub 10-point performance, and he's been decreasing since week 11. Potentially with Jalen Hurts instead of Carson Wentz. Maybe that Philadelphia offense can get some movement, but as of right now, 10 carries is not going to be sustainable moving forward. Aaron Jones, fantastic. Devontae Adams, fantastic. That's what happens when you are able to play Philadelphia. 15 carries for 130 yards for Aaron Jones and 10 receptions for 2 touchdowns and 121 yards for Devontae Adams. Very good. But where John ran away with it comes from one person, and it is Darren Waller. Darren Waller scoring 38.5 points. Man, that is just fantastic. 200 receiving yards, 13 receptions, and 2 touchdowns against the Jets. Just an outrageous point performance there from Darren Waller, and snags that top tight end score away from George Kittle in that final week of those awards. Really a great start from John. Not a lot of points left on the bench for John this week, especially with Antonio Gibson getting hurt. So John better be hoping that those starters are able to continue to put up those production values because any faltering at this point, there's no one really on the bench that's going to be a quick fill-in for this squad. So that's all we have for the matchup recaps. We're going to get into playoffs in a minute here with the Armchair Experts, but now I want to cut over to our awards ceremony. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pong Stars Awards Ceremony. I am your host, Commissioner Zach Eichten, and with me, of course, is the First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League, Jamie Eichten, as well as the first dog of the Pong Stars Football League, Fitz Eichten. Both pivotal endorsements in that assistant commissioner race and pivotal people to making this league possible. So let's get right into that awards ceremony. You mind bringing our first award out? Thank you. Our first award is the most points against during the regular season. And this award goes to Drew Mahold and the Gruesome Grinders with 1,566.08 points against during the regular season. Congrats to Drew and the Gruesome Grinders for that wonderful award. And of course, bringing out our next award is the First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League, Jamie Eichten. Thank you. All right, our second award goes to let's look at this one here. Max percentage of possible points that were achieved during the regular season. And this award goes to Tony Townsend and Worse Than Trash for getting 92.46% of their max possible points this season. Congratulations to Tony and Worse Than Trash for this historic achievement. And our next award, please. Of course, brought out by the lovely First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League, Jamie Eichten. All right. This award All right. This award goes to our largest score in one single game during the regular season. And of course, that score goes to Brennan Swan and the Spring Chickens for their score of 192 points. Congratulations, Brennan and the Spring Chickens. Thank you. All right. And for our next award, presented, of course, and brought out by Jamie Eichten, First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League. Let's take a look at what we got here. Ooh, this is a good one. Our regular season champ. That award, of course, goes to John and the Rock Plopstas for their record of 10-3. Congratulations, John, on your regular season championship. All right. And our next award, this one is going to be a good one, I can already tell. Of course, brought out by the lovely First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League, Jamie Eichten. Thank you. Ooh, this is a good one. This one's a doozy. This one is for the Bench Points Award, as in the team that gets the most amount of bench points throughout the season. And that goes to Drew Mahold and the Gruesome Grinders for their bench points of 694.44 points. Congratulations, Gruesome Grinders. Thank you. All right, looks like we have quite a bit of awards left, so we got plenty of time. Let's really revel in the excitement. Next award, of course, is brought out by Jamie Eichten, the First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League. Thank you. All right. This one is a very exciting one, and it is the Max. I don't know what happened there. It is the Max Points Possible Award, going to the team who would have, if they had set a perfect lineup every week, would have scored the max number of points for, and that goes to Drew Mahold and the Gruesome Grinders for 1,824.44 points. Congratulations, Gruesome Grinders. All right. Our next award, of course, is brought out by the lovely First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League, Jamie Eichten. Ooh, this is a good one. Of course, this was one of the closest races we've ever had in this category. But of course, it is the most points for in the regular season, going to John and the Rock Plopstas for 1,616.2 points. Congratulations, Rock Plopstas, on your historic win. Thank you. Our next award, of course, being brought out by Jamie Eichten, the First Lady of the Pong Stars Football League. Very lovely partner of mine. Come on out, Jamie. Thank you. Oh, this one's a fun one. This one is our largest victory margin, coinciding this year with our largest points in a single week, rather. And that goes to Brennan Swan and the Spring Chickens for a victory margin of 94.76 points. Congratulations, Brennan and the Spring Chickens. Thank you. All right. Now we're into the fun ones. We're into the positional awards. I'm really excited to see what we get out here first. Of course, our first award being brought out by the First Lady of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League, Jamie Eichten. Thank you. I'm already excited to see what was in here. Ooh, all right. This one is a fun one. It is our highest kicker in a single week, going to week 12, Youngwei Koo, scoring 21 points for Lucas and Pelicans on a bench. Again, that is Pelicans on a bench. Congratulations, Lucas and Pelicans on a bench. Pelicans on a bench. Thank you. A couple more positional awards to bring out, but thanks for sticking in with me this season. It has been a blast so far. I'm excited that we're able to do this nice award ceremony. Our next award, of course, being brought out by Jamie Eichten, the First Lady of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League. Thank you. All right. Oh, and of course, Fitz Eichten, the first dog of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League, here for some moral support as we go to our top running back in a single week this season, going to Dalvin Cook in Week 8, scoring 47.6 points for Brennan Swan and the Spring Chickens. Congratulations, Dalvin and Brennan, for your historic victory this week. Thank you. Only a few more positional awards for this season so far. Looking forward to seeing what those, of course, come up as. Thanks for sticking with me again this year. And this one is being presented by Jamie Eichten, the First Lady of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League. Thank you, Jamie. All right. Oh boy, this one was a doozy of a score, one of the highest I've ever seen in league history. And it is the top wide receiver score in a single week, going to Week 12, Tyreek Hill, scoring 51.4 points for Drew Mahold and the Gruesome Grinders. Congratulations, Gruesome Grinders, on your historic wide receiver score in the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League. Only a few more positional stuff left. It's been, like I said, I'm having fun up here, right, Fitz? Are you having fun up here? You don't care? That's fine. Our next award, of course, being brought out by the lovely First Lady of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League, Jamie Eichten. Thank you. All right, let's see what we got in this envelope here. Oh boy, this one is our top quarterback score in a single week this year. This one going to Patrick Mahomes in Week 3, playing for the Gruesome Grinders with Drew Mahold scoring 40 points. Congratulations, top score for any quarterback this season. Drew Mahold and the Gruesome Grinders with Pat Mahomes. Thank you. Only two more positional awards left to announce before we will move on into just, getting loose, getting ready for that nice playoff push here that we all have. Good luck to the teams in playoffs, and of course, good luck to the teams in the loser bracket for postseason. Our next award is being brought out by Jamie Eichten, the First Lady of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you. All right. Oh boy, this one was a nail biter all the way to the end, and somebody came and snatched it right in Week 13. It is our top tight end score on the season, coming in, like I said, Week 13. Darren Waller scoring 38.5 points for John and the Rock Plopstas. Congratulations, John and the Rock Plopstas, on your historic tight end victory this year. Thank you. One final position to announce our award for, and that will conclude our award ceremony. I'd like to thank everybody for joining, but our last award, of course, is being brought out by Jamie Eichten, our First Lady of the Pong Stars Fantasy Football League. Thank you. All right, our last award for this regular season is going to our top defense in a single week, where it goes to Week 5, where we had the Baltimore defense scoring 29 fantasy points for Thomas and the Dog Sniffers. Congratulations, Dog Sniffers, on your historic victory in the defense and special teams category this season. That's all we have for this season's regular season awards. That's the word. Couldn't think of the word awards for a second there, folks. It's been a long season. I'm excited for everyone who was a winner. Check should be coming through your Venmo eventually for these awards if they had any value attached to them. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you, folks, and we'll see you in those playoffs. We are adjourned. Welcome back from the awards ceremony, folks. I'm so glad you were all able to join me for this historic occasion of this first round of the awards ceremony. We'll have another ceremony when we get to the end of the playoffs, and I'm so excited for that as well. Now let's head on over for matchup previews to the armchair experts. Welcome, folks, to this week's episode of the Armchair Experts. It is great to have my two co-armchair experts here with me this week for our episode. I'm looking forward to it. We are past the playoff push. We are now into the playoffs proper, into the postseason. I'm really looking forward to finally getting to that side of this season. The way we're going to do this this week, folks, is we're going to have our armchair experts go through the matchup previews. These are going to be the matchup previews for the Rathole this week. Outsourcing the work a little bit to my co-host here. And we're going to see who wins and see who wins our brackets here too. So John, I'm going to toss over to you first for the matchup between the Gluten Freaks and Not Trading Lamar. It is a rematch of Week 13.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch this one, see how it plays out. Obviously, Josh has been labeled a fraudulent team pretty much the whole year. Zach, you could probably say, is the opposite, even though he's no longer named the Gluten Frauds, but he was at one point. He's the third highest scoring team in the league. The matchups this week are looking like they're favoring Josh. Zeke's playing Cincinnati. Zeke's not been playing well, but that is a good matchup for him. James Robinson also getting a good matchup against Tennessee. AJ Brown and Hooper also having green matchups. So definitely better matchups favoring Josh, including his quarterback as well, going against Cleveland. For Zach, Josh Allen's going to be going against Pittsburgh defense, which is going to be a tough one. Eckler's going against Atlanta, who actually has a surprisingly good run defense. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Zach, but he does have the higher average points per game so far this season. So personally, I'm going to give the edge to Zach in this one.
All right, Noel, over to you. Who do you think's got the edge? Just looking at these players.
Yeah, as John mentioned, it looks like Josh should have the edge, but his skilled players haven't been performing as well as they should be this year. I think in the points for, how much more do you have than him?
Over 1,000.
Yeah, you got quite a bit more than him.
Over 100.
Over 5.
Over 1,000 points for more. That would be real fraudulent of Josh.
Zach's team has just been consistent all year, and so I think I'm gonna have to roll with Zach with this week, even with Josh having the better matchups.
Yeah, I'm following the trend here. I'm never going to pick against myself, most likely, especially against the frauds that is Josh Palingo and Not Trading Lamar. Despite the fact that just based on the matchups, this should be an easy win for Not Trading Lamar just based on who he's got in the lineup. But not giving up hope. Kilometers Gaskin is going for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's
they're going to say 50 points.
That's going to be the game changer right there. 55 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 catches for 36 yards from Kilometers Gaskin.
Excited to see that exact stat line happen.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I called Chris Carson getting 2 catches.
Did.
For 18. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Very excited about that still. But let's move on to game number 2. Also in the winners side of things, where we have Brennan and the Spring Chickens up against Drew and the Gruesome Grinders. And Noel, I'll toss this first analysis over to you.
Yeah, I think Drew has shown that he's one of the two powerhouses in the league this year. Sorry, Sam. John's the other one. And it looks like Drew's got some pretty good matchups going on. Mike Evans has got Minnesota. Even though their defense has been surprisingly better than expected, Mike Evans is just a humongous target for Tom Brady in the red zone. And so I wouldn't be surprised with the lack of experience at the cornerbacks and safety. Well, I guess Harrison has experience, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a lot of touches down in the red zone. Mahomes is playing Miami, and even though they're 8-4 this year, so they're pretty good. It's Mahomes, and they're going to get the points that they need. And Henry and Montgomery, they both play terrible run defenses. And so just looking at the matchups, it looks like Drew should roll over Dalvin Cook, who plays Tampa, which is a very strong run defense. Chris Carson plays the Jets. I mean, you can make an argument with how bad the Jets are, but they have one of the best run defenses in the game somehow. And Robert Woods is playing New England. And I think Robert Woods has been Swan's most productive receiver. He's really been having a good few weeks lately, but I'm sure he'll be shadowed by Gilmore. And so I don't think Woods is going to be able to do too much this week either. And so I got to go with Drew this week.
Yeah, John, we'll toss it over to you then.
Yeah, I agree with everything Noel said. I'm going to be taking Drew ultimately, but I do think this one might be a little bit closer than we think, just looking at the matchups. Brennan's team has shown some grit these last 4 weeks, making a playoff run, winning 3 of his last 4 games and narrowly losing to Drew Mahol, the hottest team in fantasy football right now, last week. So I think no, that's wrong. He's playing him this week. Anyway, I think that rematch. I didn't even notice that. Yeah. Okay, I was right. So yeah, he lost to Drew last week, but I think he's going to keep it close. Brennan's team definitely has a lot of guys that are boom or bust. So I think it's going to come down to like how many of those guys boom and how many bust. But I think ultimately Drew's going to walk away with the win and move on to the semifinals.
Yeah, I think that's going to be real tough. So just for context, this is going to be the third match of these two this year. First one, Brennan got actually the winning matchup blowout on the year so far, when he scored 192 points against Drew in week 4. In week 13, he lost by about 4 points to just over 4 points to Drew. So this is definitely a brewing rivalry here between these two. And just looking at the numbers, the thing that's standing out most to me right now is who has historically the better running backs in the game right now. Drew actually had the most running back points of anyone in the league so far, at 501.6 on the year so far. But Brennan is at 495 despite his running back injuries that he's sustained all year, which has been pretty impressive that he's been able to put up those numbers. So then just looking at who's in there, Brennan's got 3 running backs to Drew's 2. And I think that might give the edge to Brennan just a little bit there, even though I'm ultimately going to have to go with the hottest team in the league, Drew Mahol, despite all that great stuff for Brennan.
I'm interested to see if Drew Mahol gives Mike Davis the start this week with the news that McCaffrey most likely, almost certainly won't play again this week. So it'll be interesting to see if he chooses to go with him. Right now he has Mike Evans in his flex spot, so he may have to shift some things around, but definitely curious to see if Mike Davis gets the start.
Yeah, definitely going to be a fun game to watch. So moving on to matchup number 4. I think at the beginning of the season, there was, or matchup number 3. Yeah, thanks. At the beginning of the season, there was a not so subtle speculation that Tony and Lucas would potentially be the 2 teams in that punishment bowl, in that punishment game, and they are not. There will be only one of them in that in that game this year, just based on the seeding of Tony being able to somehow go 6-7 on the year. And just pointing out a quick statistic for you, Tony actually was the best fantasy manager of any team this year. He did not have the best team, but he did score over 92% of his max possible points, which was the highest in the league.
So it happens when you only have like 6 good players. And you play
very true. His team definitely wasn't the best team, but he was the best manager of a bad team. So he played the correct players the most, just not that good. So just based off that, gotta go with Tony for my pick. And just looking at the matchups, I mean, Justin Herbert's gonna have a bounce back week. He had 4 point something in week 13, but this week he plays against Atlanta. It's going to be a better matchup for Justin Herbert. DeAndre Swift might be back. The Green Bay run defense has not been spectacular this season. And then hopefully Clyde Edwards-Helaire will actually play and not get sick again, and then pretty much just sit on the sideline all game. So I think just looking at these matchups, the only bad matchup that I see in here is Stephon Diggs up against Pittsburgh, but we know Josh Allen's throwing for 35 points this week, and some of that's got to go Stephon's way. And then Lucas, it's the same issues as it always is. Bad matchups. Singletary against Pittsburgh is abysmal matchup. Darrell Henderson is potentially getting overtaken by Cam Akers somehow. I'm not sure how that's happening, but at best, that's going to be a running back by committee. And then Devontae Parker up against Kansas City is just not a great matchup. And then Brandon Ayuk up against the Washington football team, somehow not a good matchup either. It's a real tough week matchup wise for Pelicans on a bench. That is Pelicans on a bench. And I got to go ultimately with Tony on the edge this week. And John, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I think he left out one very important factor, which is that Lucas does have the MVP of the league, Old Ho Koo on his team. Looking to prove that age is not a number to Tony this week. Kind of a bit of a rivalry matchup for him. That being said, I'm still going to take Tony this week. I just think Lucas's team I mean, they've only scored over 100 points twice this year, both against Knoll. I don't think their team's really going to show up and get out of bed to play another shitty team like Tony. So I think Tony's going to walk away with it.
Before we move on to Knoll, what do you think overall player ranking Old Hoku is at?
42.
40.
He's at 40. Wow.
He's at 40. He
all the way up to
10
40
spots. He jumped 10 spots in the last week. So
and he's only rostered in 44% of leagues.
Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't understand how that's possible.
That seems like fake news. Anyway.
Noel, who you got in this one?
Yeah, I originally had Lucas, but realizing that he doesn't play me, he's not going to score a lot of points. So I got to go with Tony because, as John said, he's only scored 100 points twice, and they were both against me. Otherwise, it gets like 90 or 80 or 50 sometimes. So I'm changing my pick to Tony.
I just realized I think Brennan had the highest and lowest score of the year in a single week, right?
Yeah, he did.
Anyway.
Cool stat out of nowhere. But yeah, that was matchup number 3. Matchup number 4. Big matchup between Randy's Donuts and the Dog Sniffers. Randy's Donuts had been eliminated after week 12, but the Dog Sniffers still had hope coming into the last week, and they actually got their lowest score on the year so far in week 13 in a critical must-win playoff push. Could not get the win in that one. Obviously, that came due to a few reasons, such as Frank Gore leaving the game after a single carry. You hate to see that.
Having to start Frank Gore in the first
having
place.
to start Frank Gore because Ronald Jones had a week 13 bye. That's tough. So just looking at the matchups, then it's gonna be real tough. Tom Brady is gonna be able to air it out against Minnesota, I'm thinking, which means Ronald Jones is probably not going to get as many touches as he needs to really be productive. If Tom Brady can just throw to his 3 receivers and also his tight end that just are all fantastic. McCaffrey might be back. I mean, we're Noel's hoping. Noel, who are you playing if McCaffrey's not back, since Mixon isn't able to come back either?
I have no idea. I just
Jeff
probably
Wilson?
nobody. Yeah, probably Jeff Wilson.
Oh my God. All right. Well, hope for that timeshare to come back with Mostert. I'm still giving the edge to Noel here. As of right now, just against Philadelphia, Alvin Kamara is good for probably like 40 points. So
maybe.
We'll see. Kamara has to start doing something.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a season high rushing in week 13. So hopefully that's a good sign for him. And I've been calling the dog sniffers frauds all year. I don't think they're going to be less fraudulent come week 14. No, who you got? John, who you got?
I am going to take the dog sniffers. I think it's going to come down to one player. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm saying that Keenan Allen is going to put up at least 30 points this week. I think that, looking back at Keenan Allen's stats this year, he's a PPR machine. He gets the yards. The one thing he hasn't done this season is had a multi-touchdown game. And I think that this is the week. I think he's going to have 2, maybe even 3 touchdowns. He's going to have his normal 100 yards and 10 catches. And he's going to explode for the dog sniffers and pull them over the finish line of the semifinals for the losers bracket.
It's a mouthful.
Yep.
All right, Noel, who you got?
Yeah, I got myself. I don't imagine McCaffrey's going to be sitting out just because he's not one to sit out himself. He's always pushing to play, per the reports. And even though he tweaked his hamstring last week, I don't think that's going to be much. And so I'm betting on myself, betting that McCaffrey plays, because when he plays, the 3 games he's had, he averages like 26 a game. And so I'm just hoping McCaffrey plays to pull me over the dog sniffers, as John, to use John's analogy. So
it's gonna be a close one. I'm excited. Obviously that the gluten freaks were able to make it into playoffs. I'd like to just go back to our last armchair experts when we talked about where we thought each team was going to end up. And I was correct that the gluten freaks were going to be a 5th seed team. I just want to point that out. Really, really nailed that one. Getting pretty good at these predictions sometimes, it seems like. So
sometimes it seems like.
Sometimes it seems like I'm sometimes good at things.
How did that prediction about Josh not losing the rest of the season go?
Bad, thank goodness.
True.
needed them not to do that. So, all right, that is all we got for armchair experts this week. Thanks for joining, boys, and we'll catch you after the season ends, probably.
Sounds good.
And we're back. You thought we were gone. Nice try. Here's our bracket. Yeah, we gotta talk brackets, everybody.
You say this is a professional show?
Jamie, do you see us?
Yeah, we're
professional.
I mean, John at least has his headset on. He's ready to roll.
I have my fancy microphone. I put on a shirt.
I feel like a headset makes it less professional.
He looks like he's
Right,
ready
John.
to like do some analysis there.
Mood.
You're probably just gonna.
Mood.
Wait, was that
You're-
when I sneezed?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably gonna go with
Yep.
sneeze. That's why this show isn't professional. All this damn sneezing.
I
Oh,
did you hear me? I did sneeze over here, but I like buried my face in the couch. Anyways, continue.
all right. Should we pick the rest of the games?
All right, let's do these brackets. So I'll go first here. Lead us off. Picking Zach, and I am picking Drew in the first round one of the winners bracket, which means that Drew is going to go up against
Sam.
and then I'm going to go up against John. I think that it is going to go Drew over Sam, Zach over John, and then Zach over Drew in the championship game.
What a run it would be.
It
That
should
would be a huge
quite
run.
the run.
Gluten
Narrowly winning all three of those matchups. It's going to be nail biters all the way to the end. And then in my toilet bowl bracket here, I have Tony beating Lucas, and then Noel beating Thomas, and then Thomas over Lucas, which means Lucas will be our punishing team. A real bold prediction there. And then in the seventh place game, I'm giving it to Tony over Noel.
Probably the smart pick.
Yeah, and then fifth place game, I'm giving it. Forgot those ones. We're gonna do Brennan over Josh, and then in the third place game, it will be John over Sam.
John, I'm so proud of you.
John, you're up.
You guys don't get the reference. So sad. All right. So yeah, in my winners, well, I'll start in the losers bracket actually. So in my losers bracket, I had Tony over Lucas, and then I had Thomas over Noel. So, and then in the seventh place game, I'm going to take Thomas over Tony. And in the losers bracket finale, quite possibly the second most important game of the season, I'm saying Noel gets over the hump. He gets his revenge over Lucas, and Lucas gets the punishment.
Another
a Cinderella story for Noel going up against his arch nemesis Lucas. And then in the winner bracket side of things,
Tony's going to be so sad that he didn't get arch nemesis.
Nah, Lucas is definitely the arch nemesis. All right, and then in the winners bracket side of things, I had Zach over Josh and Drew over Brennan, which would mean the exact same matchups as Zach had. I'm going to take myself over Zach. I know that Zach's riding high on himself. I'm riding a little higher on my team. And then I think that Drew is going to get it done over Sam in the upset. Not really. I think he'll be pretty heavily favored in that game and end up getting the win. So then in the fifth place game, I will have, let's see, it'll be Josh versus Brennan. I'm going to give Brennan the edge there. He's going to get fifth place. Pretty big fall from grace for Josh, showing his fraudulent ways. In the third place game, I'm going to take Zach over Sam. I think Sam is also very fraudulent. It's finally starting to show these last few weeks down the stretch. And then in the championship, I'm riding with myself. I've ridden with myself the entire way this whole season. I'm taking myself over the gruesome grinders in what could be deemed, most likely is going to be deemed an instant classic. It should be an absolute great finale to the season between the top two teams the whole way through. So should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, top two teams of me and Drew the whole way through. All right, Noel, are you going to be able to pick yourself all the way to the championship?
Yes, I'm going to make a surprising run all the way from ninth place. I say the season goes through playoffs. If you have people in the playoffs, good for you. If not, you got to play them anyway. So whoever has more teams in the playoffs wins. But no, so in the toilet bowl, I got Tony over Lucas and me over Thomas. And then I'm actually going to beat Tony for once because McCaffrey is going to be back. He's going to get 40 points in week 15. Calling it now. I know, bold. And then in the losers bracket, I got Lucas beating Thomas. because I don't want to see Lucas do the punishment after the year that he's had. It was punishment enough. And then in the winners bracket, I got John Stevens beating the bye. And then I got Josh.
That's one.
I got Josh beating Zach. I think that's what I said last time. Did I say that?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think I said that. Yeah. And then I got Sam beating the bye, surprisingly narrowly.
Narrowly.
I know. And then I got Drew over Swan. So then I got Zach beating Swan the next round for what would that be? 5th place or whatever.
5th place, yeah.
And then I got Drew over Sam and John over Josh. And then in the championship, I got Drew over John in a surprising upset because the Chiefs, I don't know who they play that week, but it's week 15, so they're probably going to put up like 60 points. Sorry, John. I hope it's close. Okay. I told John when we were playing Fortnite, I want it to be an instant classic, as he said. I think it's going to be a really good matchup. And then for 3rd place, I got Sam over Josh.
All right, I can't wait for that instant classic of Zach over Drew in week 16.
That would be an instant classic.
That would. It really would.
Hey, anything can happen in the playoffs. You just got to get in.
God, 9th place to championship. Who knew?
Yep. True Cinderella story.
That would be a real. That would be
almost impossible. Some would say.
Some would say it.
Some would say that. All right, boys. Thanks for joining this week. We're actually done now. Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Be right back.
Welcome back from the Armchair Experts, folks. We're going to hop on over right into just showing you quick who folks were able to pick for this week's Pong Stars Pick'em. Welcome back from Quick Pong Stars Pick'em. There's no rankings this week. We've gone over the matchup previews. So that is all we have for this week on the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zach Eichton. And thanks for voting. Welcome, folks, to the Armchair Experts. It's good to have everybody back with us this week. We are now past the playoff push, and we are now in the playoffs, in the postseason. And all right, I have to restart. I'm sorry. I like when I'm in the bottom part of the triangle. What? I'm the host.
That's why you restarted?
Yeah.
I agree, Jamie. RT.
Weak.
No.